Bob, thank you for your time today. It's great to talk to you again since our last call. Just for the audience's purpose, could you please provide like a quick introduction about your background and any current roles or projects that you're working on?
Yeah, so my name is Bob Harper. I'm a former accountant, although I do a little bit of accountancy work. I trained as an accountant with Pricewaterhouse, specializing in tax, expatriate tax. I've had a bit of an interesting career, different sort of roles that I've taken. My current role is really a co-founder and head of growth at Agendali, and we help accountants transform from a traditional accountant to one that's more advisory focused.
Hmm. And with Agendali right now, what was like the defining moments that made you think, right, we need to create this product. There's nothing else that's there.
Well, we created Agendali from another product. So the other product was a bigger thing than Agendali. Agendali is a meeting tool, quite a simple product. The other product had dashboards in it, a little bit of project management, sort of strategy canvases, and it
Mm,
was designed as a business coaching platform. But it was too big, really, conceptually, and really only worked with businesses that had ideally 15 plus employees, and most businesses are not of that size. So we developed something really in our sort of ivory tower, which is, I suppose, the wrong way to build software. But we built this big coaching thing, and when we presented it to a number of accountants, they liked it, but it was too big for them. What we heard people say was they really liked the meeting manager, that element, that module within that bigger product. They said, oh, that's really useful, we could use that. So that's what we broke that out of a bigger product, and
mm,
that's what started Agendally, our journey with meetings. And really it was a bit of a silly thing because we built the meeting manager first in the other product. We should have taken that to market as it was and then enhanced it, or not, as the case may be. So we wasted many, many years sort of building something that we thought was a good idea. And it is a good idea, but
Yeah,
commercially not right for the market that we were thinking about.
yeah. And with Agendally, so it's specifically for accountants. And the biggest benefit to an accountant is that it empowers them to focus on the highest value task. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, anybody can use Agendally because every business has meetings, and Agendally will help those meetings be more effective because it uses best meeting practice. Um, what we've done is we've narrowed our focus on accountants because that's really where our core purpose is from. We want accountants to do more for clients, so that our overriding brand name is more. That's the first sort of brand that we use, and everything, all the products are underneath that brand. And what we've done is we've embedded, sort of broken down into bite-sized chunks, advisory into bite-sized tools which are embedded in the agenda. So what it means is that if you can run a meeting and you know how to use the tools, which are really simple, you can be a business advisor. So we want to empower accountants of all levels to be able to have those more business commercial conversations. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. It sounds really current as well. Like we were just talking off camera about the recent developments with ChatGPT's operator model, where you can give it a prompt and it will go and carry out tasks for you, searching on web browsers and going on multiple applications, all just from an initial message to the actual platform. It does sound like it's with accountants, there's going to be like a learning curve, but also a push for them to definitely make a change in their business model and how they just operate. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, well, they've got a choice, I think, is to, and you're quite right to use the phrase business model. It's a change of business model, not just a change of services. It's a whole new approach, which is really quite challenging for any business to change their model. Fundamental thinking, the way that you price, the type of clients that you engage with, the skills that you need. It is a big change. But yeah, what I was just mentioning about, there's a guy in the US called Jason Statz who really knows. I hope I pronounce his name correctly. He really knows his stuff. So he's somebody I listen to. And yesterday he shared some slides and a post on LinkedIn. An accountant, had got ChatGPT to log into the US sort of tax. There's a product that does tax returns, and this agent logged on and completed a tax return by entering the income and the personal details, and he compared it against, a professional tax product where you do your tax returns, and it was the same. So that's the first time I've actually seen or heard of an agent doing something that an accountant would normally do. And there's a book written, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago, by a father and son duo called the Siskin. I think their surname Siskin is. I think it's called The Future of the Professions. And what they said is that AI isn't going to take jobs. It's just going to start eliminating tasks or automating tasks, so one task at a time. And obviously, the most junior entry level tasks will be first, but that's what I did a post the other day. I see it as a sort of death by a thousand cuts of traditional work. That's how I see it. Yeah.
Mm, yeah, that is really interesting. It's yeah. So with Agendali then, obviously meeting management, it's probably got a lot of different competitors. What would you say is like one of the defining features, or what makes your company different to the competition out there?
There is a lot of competitors, and a lot of them are great. If you look at their features, what they do, they've been around a bit longer than us, so they're more mature. They've got integrations. They've got a lot of things. For a non-accountant, that is the right product. But for an accountant that wants to deliver business advice at scale, they want their
Mm,
client managers to be able to speak to startups, small businesses, micro businesses, and they want to do short, sharp sessions that the client can consume intellectually, because you don't want to go on massive, complicated advisory conversations that are just over the head of most small businesses. And you don't want to spend a long time doing it, because the clients, at the end of the day, they've got a limited budget and there's limited value, because the value of business advice is what the person does with it. So if you've got a small business that goes from 200,000 to 500,000, there's a lot of value in that, but it's not as much value as going from 2.5 million to 5 million. It's the same thing, doubling it, but the
mm,
value commercially is a lot less. So
yeah,
small businesses have typically been overlooked by business coaches, by accountants, because they haven't figured out, how can I deliver business advice profitably? And with Agendally, you can, because anyone can do it.
that's great. Yeah. And then just for anyone that's listening and haven't really heard of like the term business advisory before, what's like in the UK, what's like the typical per hour rate or the base rate?
I think people are working towards 200, £250 an hour. I think that's where most,
Mm,
maybe 150 minimum, mixture of coaches and accountants that are doing business advice. There's a guy that I follow who's a strategy guy on LinkedIn, and he said something last week about 85 grand a day, someone's day rate on strategy. But you're dealing with global businesses at that level, and you've got to have a personal brand. You've got to be known as the guy or the girl that does that particular thing for that market. So yeah,
yeah,
it's 100 quid, 150 quid, maybe 200 quid, 250, maybe 300, pushing it up to 85 grand for a day, or maybe more. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, I should probably stop this podcast and get into business advisory right now then.
But there's different elements of business advisory, and it's lots of people say this advisory word. What does it mean? And I would define it as like anything that's not compliance, anything
Yeah,
that's not traditional stuff. But it can be really simple, like 15, 20-minute calls on accountability. Just check in. Have you done this? What was the blocker? What did you learn? What can you do next week that's going to help you get that done? Just like a mini coaching session, 15, 20 minutes on just taking action, not actually giving any advice, not
yeah,
saying what anyone should do. Looking forward. It's mainly about looking forward.
yeah,
What could you do? What if? It's asking those questions, challenging people
yeah,
to look at their business with sort of fresh eyes.
yeah, definitely. And I guess with time and experience, someone that's been in the game for 30 years, their advisory. It's not just, asking probing questions about the business, but it's also an opportunity for them to share different systems and processes that they've actually implemented themselves, and it's got them to where they are today. It's a chance for them to share that with their clients, I guess.
Very much so. But it's not just about what the accountant does. It's
Mm,
about what the accountant's clients do. So if you start asking your clients about their business and what they've learned, what's worked for them, you can collect that information, you can share it with other clients. And that's the difference between
yeah.
an accountant and maybe a business coach. A business coach typically might work with a few clients at a high price per month. Accountants could be working with 50, 60 clients, each, individual or more.
Mm,
And when you've got 5 or 6, 10 people in an accountancy firm, you might have 1,000 clients. So you've got that collective knowledge of 1,000 business owners, sort of what's not working, what is working. And if you focus on a certain sector or a niche, you can pretty quickly learn some sort of inside track about, what works in that sector. I work with a restaurant client, never worked with a restaurant client before, and I now know a lot about the business model of restaurants and what drives sales and margins, how to control wage cost, how to control cost of goods, stock taking, lots of things I've learned just by working with somebody.
mm, yeah. That is interesting. So just from your experience then, what would you say, to like a small business that's probably only doing 100,000 or under, um, what's like some of like the hacks or, money hacks that someone could do and implement, or, to take a look at the books to really make an impact with, like
Well, yeah, yeah. So I always start with the person, not the business. What do they want?
mm,
And challenge them why they want it, because we can all be easily persuaded and led by the big brands in the world, encouraging us to buy this phone, this watch, this house, whatever. So really getting clear on what's important to the person, because if you just go straight for growth, more of something, then usually that means work, effort, time, energy, and money committed with some element of risk. So the first thing is why, because why put more money into a pension than you need? What's the point? Why
yeah,
save more money? I mean, just having money's for money's sake. Some people, that's their thing, but I always start with the person and work out what's the gap, what is it that they need, what short, medium, and long term, and then once you got that clarified, it's then looking at the business. Typically, we all run multiple business models. We all have very different types of customers that we do very different things for them. And then there's a resulting profit from those sort of models. And it's
mm,
looking at each model. So if you're an accountant, you might have some landlords that you do their property stuff. You might have some startups. You might have some small sole traders. You might have limited companies. You might have larger limited companies, and then you have groups. So you've got all these different business models, different types of customers, different types of things that you do. And it's looking at those and sort of splitting out the business, deconstructing the business and going, which model do you enjoy that's profitable, that's going to grow, that's scalable, and then focusing on that, driving that forward. And that might mean spinning off a separate brand, becoming the tax accountant for landlords or the specialist group accountant or whatever it might be. So that's where I start looking at what do they want? What does the individual want? Person first, and then looking at the business and saying which should we focus on, and then putting a plan together to hit a specific target with specific projects and actions.
yeah. That's actually really interesting. It reminds me of this book I read. I forget the author's name, but it was called $100 Startup. And the whole premise of the book is about, figuring out what it is that you want. And, you don't need to make the next Amazon or, be worth £1 million. Sometimes it's just about, making the business that fits your lifestyle. And like the example that they gave was this woman that she was like a waitress at like a restaurant in a city, but her like true passion was that she just loved to surf. And so she ended up moving to like she lived in Hawaii. She ended up moving to around the coast and ended up opening up her own little like surfing lessons and just teaching people doing different sorts of courses. And it was, probably just around the average wage in that area, but that, that's all that she needed. And there's a lot of businesses probably that, what they initially went in to do that company, it was probably nothing to do with what they're doing now. And it's just shaped trying to chase the biggest carrot on the stick. But yeah,
Yeah, and no, there's no right and wrong, but if you take money from people, usually you've got to
yeah,
just go for growth because all that money just wants return. They don't care about you or your lifestyle. So
yeah,
yeah, when I talk about business advisory, I'm talking 100% about lifestyle business owners. That
yeah,
particular lady, if I was advising her, then we could all do with more money because it allows you to, in her case, to enhance the service experience, right? But
mm,
she could have an online shop where she could sell stuff, that relate
yeah,
to that area, something really unique. Or she could do training on. She could run an online group on how to deliver world-class service experience. So there's
mm,
also, there's different business models. So you can have your core model that you do, and then there's a book, I can't remember what it's called, but it was talking about a a wood a woodworks company where they used to get logs in, and then they used to cut the logs, and then they would sell the logs on, or they charge for that logging, service. But then they started selling the sawdust as well. So sometimes there's something else that you can sell that you're not really
yeah,
thinking about. You do
yeah,
this, but there's actually something on the side that's really valuable to other people.
yeah.
A logging company, that's the name. It was a logging company. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was going to be called a paper company.
Yeah, yeah, no, this logging company, yeah, and selling the sawdust again. It's just a concept, just an idea. But when you talk to a business owner and you say, tell them the story. Stories are really engaging, easy to understand, and you go, "Have you got the equivalent of any sawdust?" And go, "Do you know what? We've actually done, like the restaurant I'm working with. They've done loads and loads of unbelievable work on food health standards and cross contamination and all that stuff, which is legal, but they've gone right over the top. So there's a load of resources they could package up and sell as a toolkit to other restaurants."
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Just before we had the call today, you was sharing with me that you're actually launching your own podcast, and it's what could you just share with everyone the premise and how it works, and how it's probably different to a typical podcast as well that's out there.
Yeah, so look, cards on the table. We all do things for our own benefit, right? But you've got to help other people first. So the podcast, the reason I'm doing the podcast is to help our own business get some visibility. So rather than advertising the brand and the product, I sort of want to use my own personal brand and enhance my own personal brand. The thing that Daniel Priestley talks about is the key person of influence. So that's why I'm doing it. So that's what's in it for me. What's in it for the listener, hopefully, is all of these years of experience of not just my own experience, but working with other accountants. I've worked with hundreds of accountants over the years. I've probably spent more time than most, perhaps a little bit self-indulgent, sort of reading lots of books about business advisory, and I can take those little bits and put them into the podcast that is not going to be in the software. So
Mm.
it's about help. You don't have to use our software to be a business advisor. You use anything you want. You don't need to use meeting software. I just think it makes the experience better for everybody. But
Yeah.
the podcast is going to be the instant advisor, and it's going to be about how you, as an accountant, can be a better accountant for your client
Mm.
quickly, short, sharp sort of sessions that you can do with clients. So in the idea of the instant, picking up on that, they're going to be 10-15 minute episodes where I talk about one thing, and that one thing could be a marketing topic, it could be a sales topic. So how to attract sort of advisory clients, how to sell advisory to them, because some clients need to be sold. That's a service that they're looking for. And then how to deliver that advisory service. So a mixture of sort of topics.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. And it'll be really refreshing as opposed to, some of the podcasts or even meetings people attend day to day where, you can have someone waffle on for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I listen to a few podcasts, but I haven't got time to listen to them now. So what I
Yeah.
do now is I go to the podcast, I get the link from YouTube, I then put it into a website that does the transcript, and I took the transcript into ChatGPT and say, give me the six most important things from the podcast. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't got time to do a 90-minute long form podcast, and I don't think our accountants have got the time to listen to me drone on for 90 minutes. It's going to be short, sharp sessions about one thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. What's gonna be the name? Have you decided?
Yeah, the instant advisor.
Yeah, definitely. Well, at the end of this, you could send over a link to when it's ready, and I can put it onto the
Yeah, cool.
as
Cheers.
well. Yeah. Um, as well, I was kind of looking on your LinkedIn, and I'd seen that you actually had some experience as a sales mentor with Google. Was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. So what happened was, around the time that we were building this big first product, I was thinking, need to get it in front of a few people. And I was going on to various Facebook groups, and someone from Google put an advert up saying that they're looking for mentors. They run this 5-day or 1-week accelerator where they have 30, 40, 50 businesses, and some of them are funded. Some of them are not funded, and they were, as I say, they were saying, we're looking for mentors. So you give your time for free, but it's a great experience. You learn a lot. So I thought I'll put myself forward, with my accountant hat on.
Yeah.
And yeah, the guy that was running it got back to me and arranged an interview. And he was sort of sitting on a beanbag in Google, with his headset on, all cool, and said, "So, tell us then, Bob, about how you think you can help these business owners. What can you mentor them in?" So I started talking about finance stuff, and he said, "Sorry, I've got you down as a salesperson." And I went, "No, I've done the bit of selling, but accountancy is my sort of trained profession." He went, "Well, we got loads of accountants. Tell me about what you've done in sales." So I told him what I'd done on sales, and he went, "Wow, that's great. Exactly what we're looking for. Come in as a sales mentor." So I went, "All right then." So you live and learn. So I rocked up at the Google event and didn't know what to expect. And there were 40, 50 mentors, some top people from
Really?
really great experience. And yeah, I did my thing with clients, with the businesses there. It went down really well, and I ended up doing a keynote for them. And yeah, it was a really interesting experience. So yeah, I had to sharpen my sort of mentoring skills up. But I just learned what other people are, I used rather what other people had given me, and
Yeah, yeah,
just sort of put this little body of work together. And what I've done with sales that I think people resonate with is, because of my accountancy background, I've sort of broken it down into very structured processes. So, for example, I've got a question generator. It's a little tool that allows a business to generate the questions that end up helping them sell their product or their services to somebody. So if you use the question generator, you end up with 30, 40, 50 questions, and those questions, just ask those questions and you're on the right track. So I've broken it down. It's a logical sales system. I'm a logical person at heart.
yeah, yeah. That's great. Yeah,
So yeah, very interesting. And yeah, I might do that again, whether it's Google or something else. But I enjoy that. As I said, it's been around, dynamic energy, loads of energy, young people. It's cool. It's really, really good.
yeah, yeah. So one of the initial topics that I wanted to speak to you about was the hidden cost of tool switching in early stage companies, and then that can also be applied to accountancy firms. And we can talk about it in that setting. Given your experience, when a company starts the fiscal year, it's very much what do we spend our money on, how do we allocate resources, and what tools or you know softwares out there are going to help provide the biggest impact. Is there any, stories or any experiences that you've had that have helped shape the way that logically think about each business and what actually needs these softwares, which is a nice to have and which is absolutely necessary?
Yeah. So I think of sort of three situations are popping up in my mind. First of all, I think a business should work out the cost of not having a new system, right? So what's the current cost? There is a current cost, whatever that might be. So for example, for Agendali, I would get a firm to think about how much revenue are they able to generate per hour doing their current business model, and then what could they do if, and it is an if, right? Before you look at the software, if you were able to change your business model, what does that look like, right? And what does it look like for each week, each month, quarter, year, and then for the next 10 years. So that's the first thing, because a lot of people are worried about the cost of switching and focus. Oh, it costs money, it costs time. Yeah, it
Yeah.
does. It does. It does. I say to people, it's a lot easier to run a meeting doing what you're doing now than on Agendali, because Agendali is a bespoke system. You've got to learn how to use it. You can't freestyle. If you want to freestyle, then don't use Agendali. So whatever the product is, if you like doing what you currently do, don't look for something else. But work out the cost of not having a new system, not changing,
Mm.
and then compare that against the cost to change. The other thing is the cost of change, I reckon, is also linked to the health of the culture of the business. Because typically what I see, and I hear from other vendors as well, is when you go into a business, you'll have a group of people, some of which are eager for change and love it. Most people, say it's 20%, most people are sort of on the fence,
Yeah.
open-minded, but not necessarily great. We've got something new to do. And then you've got another group of people that typically approach new things with more than a healthy dose of skepticism. They're change resistant. And I believe if you look at all behavior as like there's positive intent behind it. So I would first, because if you have a group of people and they're not all on board and they're not all working together, the cost of change is a lot. It takes longer for that change to come in.
Mm.
So yeah, I think culture. I look at have we got a culture of change? Is it do the team actively look at things and go, that's great, let's run with it? Because if you want to find problems, you'll find problems.
Yeah.
Nothing's perfect, including Agendali. There's lots of things with Agendali that people will say it doesn't do this, doesn't do that, doesn't do the other. Okay, yeah, it doesn't do those things, but it does these things. It gives you that result. Is that what you want? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the cost of buying software, the software is probably 10% of the cost.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
change is the other bit. So is it worth it? Is it worth
Yeah.
is it worth
Yeah.
doing the change?
Yeah. And it's definitely like the utilization rate as well, how much will actually be used by the team.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah,
that comes to mind for me is for we were looking for sales intelligence softwares, and you've probably heard of Zoom Info.
yep.
They've got like the biggest market share. Well, theirs is like a premium product, a premium software, and then there's a competitor called Apollo,
Hmm.
and they're pretty new, and their cost is radically cheaper. It's so much cheaper. And for what we needed, it provided everything that we needed. Zoom Info obviously is known as, the best in that area, in that market. And it does because one of the things that it provides is like a sale. It provides the organization structure so you can actually see who reports to who, and there's a lot of value in that. But we found that if we could use Apollo for actually gathering like the emails and the phone numbers and finding out who works for who, and what departments, and then when we wanted to go and find the org, we used this other software that it was actually called the org at the time. I think they've changed the name now, but that was 10x cheaper, and it
Mm.
was just provided us what we wanted. So it's interesting as well, because I do think you do need to have a bit of skepticism and to be slightly risk adverse. But then if you're too much on that spectrum, then it can just lead to inaction, and then you're in the same place.
Yeah, and the challenge that I have with accountants is a big part of the accountancy work and mindset and attitude that you bring to being an accountant is you're looking for mistakes most of the time. You're looking for no's. Can't claim this. That's wrong. There's a difference there. I can't ignore it. I need to go and find what they do. We're quite detailed people, and rightly so. But when you bring that to business development, when you bring that to strategy, it sort of can prevent you moving forward because it's not quite right. But I would contrast Agendali to Zoom Info. If somebody's looking for the lowest cost way to have a meeting, you could probably have two or three different tools to do the one thing that Agendali does.
Hmm.
The way we've priced Agendali is we've looked at all the tools that we're aware of on the market, and I think that they are overly priced for what they do. It's a personal opinion, but I compare even our product. If you compare our product with something like Zero, the accounting system, what Zero can do and the amount of code that it must have per pound that they charge you is lower than per pound what we would charge you for Agendali. So it's a case of trying to figure out what's the right price point so that you can get some traction, you can make some money, you can invest in the product, and the client that you've got sees it as a great return.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're probably more like Zoom Info. There's a cheaper way to have meetings than Agendali.
Yeah. And it's also about the service that you provide. It's not just about
Yeah.
the product, but it's also like the customer support and, you know, if someone's unsure on how to use it, how good that service is after you pay for the subscription.
Yeah, we have an implementation phase, which is, not really about how to use the software. Maybe 10-20% is like, oh, there's a little thing here that you can do, because we've got
Yeah.
all videos on that. But it's really about helping the accountant improve their agendas. So they might have team meeting agendas or one-to-one sort of performance reviews, which tend to be pretty weak in most businesses, and they're really important because if you can get your team, their performance up, the whole business transforms. So yeah, we do provide a bit of consultancy along the way, but I want the tool to stand up. The price that we charge for the tool, I think, is a really good price,
Yeah.
really fair price, and offers a lot of return. But if an accountant's coming in, which some will do, is this the cheapest way to do it? I would go no, but it's the most elegant way.
Yeah, definitely. And to wrap it up for today, what's your focus for the next 12 to 18 months with Agendali? Is there a new feature releasing, or is it a focus on marketing and sales?
The main focus is getting to break even.
Hmm.
The way we get to break even is by making sure the early adopters that we've got are hugely successful.
Yeah.
So success stories for everybody that joins us today. So my personal commitment is that I just keep following up with people until they use every feature of the software, or they decide that feature is not for us. But we get a success story from everybody, making sure that we focus in on the ideal customer persona, the segment that works best for
Yeah.
Agendali. So yeah, it's mainly, and then on the product, it's listening to the users that are using it the most, and either changing the software or tweaking it or giving them things that they can do to achieve the things that they want to do. We've just
Mm.
launched a new feature, which is the goals area. And this is goals for the accountancy firm. We had goals for the client because that's part of business advisory. What are your goals? So there's a goal manager in there. But I just completely overlooked, stupidly really, that should have been for the accountant as well. So now the accountant can set their own goals up inside Agendali, and they can set goals up for their team, to individual goals, and then they can have meetings to drive those goals forward. So that's just repurposing a piece of the software that was for clients for the accountant. So they become their own business advisor. That's the
Yeah,
idea.
that's interesting. Yeah. Well, thanks for your time today, Bob. And I look forward to trying the product at some time as
Yeah,
well.
cool. Yeah,
Testing it
definitely.
out, definitely.
Yeah.
And yeah, promoting your podcast as well.
Thank you.
Once it's
Yeah.
ready, I'll do some promotion on my side
Yeah.
as well. So, yeah,
Appreciate it, Jack. Thank you.
thank you.